Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Our tradition is to go around and introduce ourselves by first name before we introduce our speaker. I'll start. My name's Tom.
Bill.
Teddy.
My name is Carl.
My name is Manuel.
My name is Rich.
John.
You're on.
My name is Mark.
My name is Tautuan. My name is Lee.
Chris Adachita.
I'm Adam.
I'm Lies.
Larry.
Michael.
My name is Cass.
Dan.
Patrick.
My name is Jerry.
I'm Jack.
Tony. Mitch.
Jim.
My name is Clint.
My name is Pete.
Ty.
My name is Ray.
Richard.
Al.
Jay.
Fred. My name is Roy.
Jerry.
I'm Hal.
Steve.
My name is Jeff.
James. David.
Mike.
Asa.
Mark.
George.
Paul. Great. Did we miss anyone? Okay. Our speaker today, in extremely fine print, is Jana Drakka. Or Gengetsu, wait, I want to get this right, Gengetsu Junsei.
Close.
Who will introduce that properly?
Well, I mean, I would say it with a Scottish accent, so it wouldn't be any
Jana received Dharma Transmission in the Soto Zen Buddhist Lineage from Zenkei Blanche Hartman, the first woman in this lineage. Jana's nonprofit organization, Jana Drakka Community Services, provides a wide range of services, including support groups, workshops, classes, and talks. Jana's community work is based in harm reduction principles, a way to meet everyone with complete acceptance, and allows for a client-centered modality. Among her many activities, Jana leads a meditation group at Glide Memorial Church on Monday evenings, facilitates an ongoing peer support group for case managers at Tenderloin Housing Clinic, where she runs a mindfulness group and brief stress support group, and gives one-on-one counseling to staff and clients. Jana, welcome.
Thank you. And it's just, I could not be more delighted to be here with everybody. It's just wonderful to see everyone. I actually haven't been out of the house. I've been out of the house 3 times in the last 3 weeks. I'll just do a wee quick update. Something went wrong with my health about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I ended up in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And the diagnosis right now is there isn't really one. They came up with a couple of things that turned out not to be right. So what I'm left with is, as you see, I have a walker because I can't. I found that even when I'm sitting down, I feel like I'm going to fall over. It's a very peculiar sensation. Very weak. And so I just say that I suddenly turned into the 100-year-old person. And I tried to go out on Monday to work with my Sangha, but I couldn't make it because I had a bit of a cold and that made it impossible. So this is the first time actually I've been out and really talking to anybody for about 6 weeks. So I couldn't be happier. I feel it's all my guys. I have to say how wonderful that retreat was. For those of you that were on the retreat, it was fabulous. I'd like to do that every weekend. I haven't felt that at home and in amongst so many beloved people for I can't remember when. And the hospital folks were trying to send me to a nursing home or an old people's home, something like that. And I said, no, I'm not going to live in one of those places. And they said, well, don't you have any family? And as probably most of you know, my family told me to get lost quite a while ago. The world's most prejudiced family. They're wonderful. And I said, no, I don't have any family. I don't have any next of kin. And then I thought about you guys. And I thought, of course I do. Of course I do. I have people that I know I love, you know. So that was lovely to realise that actually I have got a family. And it's you guys and other people that I love and that I sit around with, you know. And I guess a lot of us are in that position. Maybe some of you still have family that can stand you, and maybe some of you don't, you know. And that's where I think that really we have to be family. There's an awful lot of ideas of separation, and I'm different from him, and he's different from me. And when it gets right down to it, that's all a wee bit silly. And that's what's causing so much trouble in the world today. I'm like this and you're like that, so forget it. As you know, I'm very much into interfaith. All the memorials I do, for example, are interfaith. People often come up afterwards and say, thank you, Father, for that lovely Catholic ceremony. So I think what I found in the last few weeks, and I can't stand lecturers that talk about themselves all the time, but it's just what I found in the last few weeks was I thought, because, you know, la la la, I'm a Dharma ancestor. You know, I'm as high as you can get in Buddhism, la la la. You know. And so when I started to get ill, I kind of was all right with that. But when I started to get anxious and stressed out in the hospital, I realised I wasn't okay with that. After all, I go around teaching people how to deal with stress and anxiety. This cannot possibly be happening to me. I thought, God, that was such a great thing to find out. I mean, how separate could I be from anybody if I sit around and say, well, I don't get like that. I don't get stressed, I don't get anxious, I'm a Dharma ancestor. And it's just ridiculous. And then I realised that in order to be family, in order to be really close with each other, admitting vulnerabilities is really important. And I found it was really hard. You know, a working class kid, I just had someone do my housework for the first time ever a couple of weeks ago. And it was always this independent and, you know, I'm fine. You know, whenever someone asks a Scottish person how they are, I'm fine. Unless your head falls off onto the ground, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. And we really do ourselves a disservice that way. And I know especially in the gay community, and I think especially with gay men, this whole thing about appearance. And everybody's supposed to stay young. And everyone's supposed to look like they're 20. And nobody should be walking around with a walker, for God's sake, or anything like that. And we really do ourselves a disservice with that. There's a wonderful story. Of course, part of what's going on with me is I have a terrible cognition problem now. Luckily, the thoughts don't come from the brain. I don't know where they come from, but they don't come out of there, so that's okay. There's a story, which I can't remember the name of the people or anything, but that's okay. In Japan, there was a guy giving a Dharma talk, and all the monks were there, and he noticed this old priest that kept coming and sitting at the back and never asked a question, never interacted, and left after the talk. So finally one day, the old priest walked up to the lecturer and said, "Can we talk?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I wanted to talk to you for a while." He said, "You never talk." And he said, "Well, I've come to arrange my funeral." And the lecturer, the Dharma speaker said, well, you have to explain that a bit. And he said, well, many, many years ago, I was a well-known priest, and I gave lots of talks to people, and people loved me, and they would ask me questions and learn the Dharma from me. And he said, one day I was up there giving my Dharma talk, and someone asked me, are senior priests or people like you beyond the reach of karma? Have you moved out of everyday life? Are you now free of all troubles? And he said yes. And he was then given 500 lifetimes as a fox. So I'm glad I kind of realised it in time, although I think a lifetime or two as a fox might be fun. But I'm glad I realised in time that I was falling into that same trap. So I don't want any of you to fall into that trap. For example, with the degeneration in the spine, I've been fine with that. I can walk round, I can keep going, no one knows. Until one day I got drop foot. And someone here, I think, showed me what to do about that. I had drop foot. And then I felt bad, like my foot wouldn't lift up. It just went, and it kind of dragged along behind me. And then I hated it. And that was because it was obvious that other people could see there's something wrong with me. And again, it's all this thing about appearance, appearing to be fine, appearing to be okay, appearing to be 20 years younger than you are, And people have said to me, you're not old, 60's the new 40. Well, no, it's not. That's just silly. And the thing is that when we get caught up in pretending that we're just, la, 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 then it's a real trap. It's a terrible trap. Because then you cannot be your authentic self with anybody. And if this practice of Buddhism is about anything, it's about being your authentic self, your real self. Not some pretend image, not some buff gym bunny or something, but the real self. And that real self does have problems, does get old. After all, that's what the historical Buddha went out of the palace to find out about, apparently. Old age, sickness and death. And we tend to get this idea that, that won't happen to me. Although, of course, in the gay community, we've lost so many over the years that we don't quite get it that badly. But we do tell ourselves stories. I realised my story was, I was going to decline gracefully. Just, decline gracefully, surrounded by those that love me. And, then eventually I'd fade off and die, and it would be lovely, And that was my story. So, to suddenly be walking around and everything's fine, and then bang, you suddenly can't get around and so forth. Quite a shock. I bet if you looked the next time you were meditating, or the next time you just had a quiet moment, I bet you'd find your stories. And the stories that you're telling yourself about your life, you can spot them if, for example, you're telling yourself something, it's going to be okay, and you don't laugh about it. You know me, humour is so important. It's a good way to spot if you've got sucked into some image, some way of being, it's not funny. Somebody gave me back a book that I forgot I had read them in the hospital, and it was Pema Chodron. Of course, I can't remember the name of it, but you can look it up anyway. And she was talking about this fact that everybody, no matter what in life, goes through these periods of what they call in Tibet Shempa, which is a feeling of unease or pain or discomfort, a feeling of being off balance. And our usual reaction to something like that, I'm not well, I can cover it up, I can hide that, I can just move it, I'll get away from that, And actually, as you know, if you try to push things away, they just come and get you by the throat. It only makes it worse. So instead of denying that we're getting old and sick, I thought you might like a cheerful talk. Instead of denying that we can get old and sick, it's such a human thing, Isn't it time in this world that we started looking for the commonalities? You know, instead of all these divisions and race and class. Oh, you don't have class in America. So that's called money in America, yeah. But instead of being so divided, you know, can't we start looking for these connections? And one way of doing that is that she actually gave a very simple exercise that I thought I might share, because I've been doing it to stay sane. I almost completely lost it. The day when I was in the hospital, and I found even with the walker, I couldn't get out of the room. And I was locked up in my 20s and vowed that would never happen again. I would never, ever be in a position where I couldn't leave the room. And so all my nice calm and all the nurses saying, oh, you're so fun, you laugh all the time, we're so happy to have you here, we wish you never went home, kind of thing. Suddenly, when I found I couldn't get out the door, I was swearing, I was throwing things. Suddenly I just lost it. The lights were too bright, the noise was too much. Luckily, they have a lovely chaplain. I talked to her and realised that, you know, I was triggered because I have PTSD. But who, me? I haven't had PTSD attack for a long time. I didn't even recognise that I was triggered. And luckily, I found that book after that. And what she recommends is first keep your sense of humour. So we'll have joke time in a minute. And then she says, when you feel it, whatever it is, when you feel it in your day, where you start to feel that tenseness or just an uncomfortable feeling and not rightness, you know, instead of what we usually do is walk away, or as she says, some of us medicate ourselves, some of us do it with healthy things, so-called, like apples and oranges. Some of us eat donuts, not so good, you know, some people do, you know, crack and smack and things like that, not very good at all. So she said, instead of any of those kind of aversion actions, with a sense of humour, take 3 breaths. She said, that's all you need, 3 breaths. So you stay with that feeling of discomfort. And then she said, and then lean into it. Lean into it instead of averting from it. So actually I've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 weeks since I read that, because I really had found something that I didn't think I could tolerate, being locked up like that. I felt like being locked up. And now in my apartment, unfortunately there's 2 flights of stairs, which my wonderful guys helped me down today. So I can't actually get out of there either. Plus, the man next door died the day before I got back from hospital. So I'm trying to work with this, you know. Income's going, don't know what, you know, everything's kind of looks like it's going. Body's going, I don't know what the heck is going on. So I really, really, really have to depend on the meditation practice. Otherwise, I'd just be like doing that the day that, you know, it's exploding and throwing things and swearing, because basically the person I think I am cannot stand being locked up in a room that way. So it's a lot to do with those images that we hold on to about ourselves too. So I just want to recommend that practice. I'm finding it just great. To see that unease come up. I won't even put the TV on at the moment, because I realised that I was using that. I was burning out with the work I was doing. The doctor told me in the summer to stop, and I said no. But I realised that we use all these tools, the TV, or lots of food, or maybe alcohol or something, whenever that comes along. And really, I would recommend, instead of that, trying to get away from it, lean into it, because that's us accepting ourselves just the way we are. I mean, it'd be really stupid if I tried to pretend. I can't walk without that walker. So, I mean, there's no way to pretend anymore. But we do. We put up masks, so we're not really looking at each other, or we don't really feel that people can see us. You know. I think it's really important to move into our vulnerability, you know, and share that, be that with each other. But also to try this technique, Shenpa. I still can't remember the name of the book, but it might come to me. 3 breaths, and I actually physically lean when I'm doing it, just because I'm that way. And then the feeling of leaning into it, so that then you can actually accept how you are. And accepting how you are that's how you learn how to accept everybody. If you can't accept yourself, then you're never going to accept the people that you think you're seeing out here. They're different. They're something else. So I really want to recommend that one. Instead of feeling like, oh my God, there's something wrong, I have to do something about it, whatever your usual something is, try that one just for a while. 3 nice long breaths and lean into it with humour and see what happens. Talking of humour, there's been a deep question on my mind for quite a while, and I know I'm in the right place to find the answer. What was Joni Mitchell's sister's name?
Yoni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell! Thank you. The Yoni, yes, thank you for that. We had a lovely... It's really actually has been bothering me for a while, because on the retreat we had a lovely kind of a entertainment night, and we had Joni Mitchell's sister. But I could not, and I was telling people how wonderful it was, and I could not remember Joni Mitchell's sister's name. Although I wondered afterwards about, that demonstration I did with that Lama guy, the sex life of the haggis. I wondered if that might be a terrible defilement, and maybe that's why I'm stricken at the moment. Oh yeah, actually I just brought this because, when we're talking in Buddhism about our meditation and folks say, oh, you're becoming detached, experience detachment from things. Well, actually I just brought this because of my memory's not working right now. This was a great thing. The word detachment is most often defined as the capacity to care deeply from an objective place. I had to bring that and share that with you. Because, I think again that thing of I'm not quite right, get away from myself, that, again, I can care deeply about what's going on with myself or with others, but from a place where you're not all enmeshed. And of course our meditation gives us that place to be. So it wasn't relevant to anything, I just wanted to share that with you, because for years I've been bothered by that aspect of Buddhism, that we seem to get detached. And I don't know if you go to other Buddhist centres, but it's often hard to see the warmth of the Dharma that people talk about. And to me, the Dharma is a way of accepting everybody and being with everybody and loving everybody. So one of these days, maybe we'll get a retreat centre. Hey, Cass?
Yes.
I want a retreat centre for us. And that'll be the place where you can come and always be at home. I think we need that. So I'm up for it. So I was thinking about y'all last night, and let's see. There was a great, of course, I had to bring Rumi with me, of course. And every time I look through this, I keep going to my old favourites, but this time I just kind of flipped through and I found some great ones that I'd never had before. Don't think I ever read before. You see, that's the advantage when your mind starts to go, when your brain, your memory rather, starts to go. You can read the same book over and over. You can watch the same movie. Because you don't know what's going to happen. So, for some reason I've got a couple I wanted to share. And, you can't explain Rumi. Rumi was he originated the Sufis and the dancing, the circular, the dervish dancing. Yeah. And they say that's their meditation. And when they whirl, They're aware of the circular movement of everything, and it puts them in. It's just wonderful. So Rumi, I have to share this because I heard people reading Rumi at various Zen centers for years, and no one ever mentioned that he had a gay lover. No one mentioned that. So I just have to make that announcement. He was a spiritual master, and one day this guy called Shams came, who was about 20 years older than Rumi, and they got into spiritual congress, and his students were jealous because he would go off and get into these long conversations with Shams. But it was also known that they were lovers, because there is no division. We tend to put sex over here, especially in America. God, you guys are uptight. Sex has no place with religion. You know, we have to be celibate, things like that. So we put it over there, and it's not very... But to him, there was no difference between the Almighty or God or the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, and his beloved. And so he writes in his poems, if you've never read any, please do, because he addresses the person he's talking to as the beloved. You don't know if it's the so-called higher power or his lover, but in actual fact they're the same thing, aren't they? Why would we have to separate those things off? So he often finishes... and by the way, Shams disappeared mysteriously. We in the gay community suspect that he was murdered. Not to worry, I read that he had another guy appeared a few weeks after him. The students got jealous of that one too. And he often finishes with a question, so don't think I've stopped halfway through, it really is there. And this one's called Enough Words. How does a part of the world leave the world? I began to get frightened of death, I realised, when I was so ill, and I never felt fear of that before. And that's why this one drew me in. How does a part of the world leave the world? How can wetness leave the water? Don't try to put out a fire by throwing on more fire. Don't wash a wound with blood. No matter how fast you run, your shadow more than keeps up. Sometimes it's in front. Only full overhead sun diminishes your shadow, but that shadow has been serving you. What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle, and your boundaries are your quest. I can explain this, but it would break the glass cover on your heart, and there's no fixing that. You must have shadow and light source both. Listen and lay your head under the tree of awe. When from that tree feathers and wings sprout on you, be quieter than a dove. Don't open your mouth for even a coo. When a frog slips into the water, the snake cannot get it. Then the frog climbs back out and croaks, and the snake moves towards him again. Even if the frog learnt to hiss, still the snake would hear through the hiss the information he needed, the frog voice underneath. But if the frog could be completely silent, then the snake would go back to sleeping, and the frog could reach the barley. The soul lives there in the silent breath. And that grain of barley is such that when you put it in the ground, it grows. Are these enough words, or shall I squeeze more juice from this? Who am I, my friend? I'm not going to try to go into that. I do want to leave plenty of time to talk, but there was one other that I wanted to share, and it's because of this idea of family and not hiding or being vulnerable to each other, of admitting you can't pick your foot up or something's wrong or you're sad. One of my students called me last night and said he was very depressed. He gets that way. And he said, I feel like such a wimp because I go lie down and I'm so unhappy. And I said, you shouldn't feel like a wimp because you lie down when you're unhappy. You should feel like a hero when you stand up again. You know? We all do it. We all have to lie down. We all have to give it up every now and then. And no matter how bad it is, that's why everybody in the world that gets up in the morning is my hero. You know? We do pretend that it's all fine. Old age, sickness and death. Oh yes, we're Buddhists. We know about old age, sickness and death. But I don't want to acknowledge it. We don't want to say, you know. We don't want to share that. We think we should just share the good parts, you know, the non-wimpy parts. So I just want to encourage us all, let's be each other's family, you know. Let's have a place where everyone comes, steps in, and it's heavenly. No one badmouths anyone. There's no need to. And that to me is what I never really had a family that I related to. I think I've told you that I use my family as illustrations when I teach as the world's most prejudiced family. But I didn't understand them growing up. I didn't understand why they wouldn't talk to anybody who wasn't exactly like them. You know, you had to be white, you had to be Church of Scotland, working class, and straight, you had to be straight. And I could never relate to them at all. So I've had a longing for that family for a long time, and I think, begun to find it here. You know. So here's a wee one that came to mind. I bet a lot of you know the story about the blind man and the elephant. Well, this is a different version, so don't worry if you don't know that version. Some Hindus have an elephant to show. No one here has ever seen an elephant. They bring it at night to a dark room. One by one we go in the dark and come out saying how we experience the animal. One of us happens to touch the trunk and says, it's a water pipe kind of creature. Another the ear, don't go there. Who's going there? Who's got a filthy mind over there? Stop it. Another the ear, a very strong, always moving back and forth fan animal. Another touched the leg. I find it still, like a column on a temple. Another touched the curved back and said, it's a leathery throne. Another, the cleverest, feels the tusk and says, it's a rounded sword with a point of porcelain. He's proud of his description. Each of us touches one place and understands the whole in that way. The palm and the fingers feeling in the dark are how the senses explore the reality of the elephant. If each of us held a candle there, and if we all went in together, we could see it. If we each held a candle and all went in together, we could see it.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.